My blissful selves. Today, let us know something about. First of all, let us know what is God. To diva is to shine. The shining one is God. The shining one is Deva. Divyatiti iti devaha. That which shines is Deva or God. So the God is the knowing entity. Usually we know the things, We can see the objects through our eyes. But the eyes cannot see. The knower that is there can see. All the objects are known. But the knowing entity is God. God is consciousness. Then what is exactly meant by worship or puja? Puja or worship means making the living beings happy. We have to remove the unhappiness and make the living beings happy is the only worship. And we can do this worship by the body, by talk, or by mind. Yena kena prakarena yasya kasyapi dehinaha santosham janayet pradnyaha tadeva ishvara pujanam. So the happiness and unhappiness are experienced only by the living beings. The non-living objects cannot experience whether it is happiness or unhappiness like that. So making the living beings happy by removing the unhappiness is the only worship or the puja of living beings. So the living beings only are the gods and the goddesses. And making them happy is the only worship of God. The whole universe is a temple. And all the living beings that they are living in this universe are the gods and goddesses. And we are the worshippers of these gods and goddesses that are there in the universe concerned. Then, what exactly is the worship? So the living beings that are there in the universe, seeing the living beings as gods and goddesses. Usually people used to say, Shivaya Namaha. When a particular person sees another person, Shivaya Namaha. That means that body is the Shava. And in that Shava or in the body, there is Shiva. So when we see the living beings, we have to see the God in them and not the body. We should not see the Shava, but we have to see the Shiva. So seeing the living beings as gods and goddesses and removing their unhappiness and making them happy is the only worship of God. So the living beings experience unhappiness in many ways. When they are hungry, they experience unhappiness. When they are thirsty, they experience unhappiness. And the unhappiness that has been experienced by these living beings can be removed by us. We are the worshippers. So the living beings that have been there in the universe, we have to see the living beings as gods and goddesses. And you have to see me as God or goddesses. In this way, mutually we have to see in each other gods and goddesses and make them happy by removing the unhappiness is the only God worship. So when the people are hungry, so we have to feed the hunger. We have to provide food to them. And we can establish the boarding houses to them so that they can be fed, the men, the birds, and the beasts. All the living beings can be fed with the boarding houses. The living beings usually become thirsty. Then we have to provide water to drink. And even the free tanks, water tanks can be constructed wherever necessary. And that water of the water tanks can be used by men, birds, and the fish. So we can dig the wells and we can construct them. We can dig the ponds and we can construct them. And the water of the wells and the water of the ponds can be used for drinking purpose, for bathing, and for washing the clothes. Even the dams can be constructed so that the water of the rivers can be stored in reservoirs. And the water that has been stored in the reservoirs can be used for drinking, can be used for washing the clothes, and even the water of the reservoirs can be used for irrigation. And not only this, we can dig the bore wells and we can construct the water tank. And the water tank of the water that has been there in the water tank can be used for drinking purpose, for clothing the clothes, like that. Then in the same way, we can provide clothes to our gods and goddesses so that they can protect the body from the cold. And this is also a kind of worship. Then during summer, so the people will be in a position to be unhappy because there is sunlight. And even during rainy season, there are heavy rains. So the man can be, or the living beings can be protected by rains and by sunlight. And if we provide umbrella, by the help of umbrella, they can protect their body by rains and the severe sunlight. And the living beings will be unhappy when there is sultriness. And when we provide the fans, so they can overlook the sultriness. So in this way, we can make the living beings happy, and we can remove the unhappiness, and we can worship them in this way. And then many, will be usually unhappy when the other persons abuse them. Then one has to think the abuses are nothing but the alphabets of a language. When others abuse us, they abuse us by seeing our body, whether the body is short or the body is of height, whether the body is lean or the body is stout, whether the body color is red, white, or black. And they comment us, they abuse us. So they abuse us by seeing our body. But if we try to know our real nature, we are not bodies. We are not the body. When we are living, we talk. And when we are dead, we don't talk. Till the talker will be there in the body, we will be in a position to talk. When the talker leaves the body, the gross body becomes dead. If that is the case, what is our real nature? Our real nature is of talking. And if we have to talk, we have to have consciousness. That means we are consciousness. So our real nature is consciousness. But the consciousness cannot be seen by the eyes. And if they cannot see us, that is consciousness, how can they abuse us? So they cannot abuse. When the others abuse us, we have to think that we have not been seen by others. And if that is the case, how can abuse us? Like this, the unhappiness that has been caused by abuses will be overcome. So in this way, the people will be deceased. And when the people have been deceased, we have to serve them. This is also a kind of worship. We can provide the tablets. We can provide the capsules. We can give injections. And we can make the arrangement, if necessary, the operation like that. We can serve these living beings in this way. And the patients which have been suffering by diseases, so we can help them by bathing them, because they cannot bathe, because they cannot take their meal. We can feed them. They cannot sleep. We can make them to sleep. In this way, we can help the diseased persons or the patients, and you can do the worship of God like that. So in this way, we can construct the free hospitals, particularly in a village area. In a village area, there are no hospitals at all. And the people concerned are poor. They have no money to afford for the hospitals. And if we make an arrangement to appoint the doctors there in the free hospitals, so the doctor has to think that the patients are the only gods and goddesses. And the doctors are themselves as the worshippers, so that the unhappiness of the diseased persons can be overcome. Then, so there are people, old people, father, mother, grandfather, and grandmother. In their very old time, there will be nobody to serve them. So they, in old days, they cannot see the objects, cannot see. Not only that, they cannot listen. They have no teeth in the mouth, and they cannot balance the body when they are standing or when they are walking like that. And who has to look after them? So during our childhood, so our parents have grown up us. And in old age, we have to look after them. We have to serve them. And if we don't serve them, so we will be under their obligation. So the sons and the daughter-in-laws, if they don't serve, in the future, they will be suffering to the maximum extent. And this is also a type of worship. And people will be suffering with the desires. Usually, the peoples have maximum desires. They have maximum desires because they think that the sense objects give happiness. And if we try to know whether the sensory objects are givers of happiness or unhappiness, usually there is no happiness in the sensory objects. What exactly happens is, when the sense enjoyment has been continued, there the mind becomes calm. And when the mind becomes calm, we experience the happiness by the reflection of our individual soul. So, when the mind has become calm, and when we experience happiness, that happiness is not of sensory objects, but the happiness that we experience is of our own self. So due to ignorance, man thinks that the happiness is there in the sensory objects. And when a person will be continuing to enjoy the sensory objects, the desire to enjoy the sensory objects will be increased. When a person goes on seeing the forms, So the desire to see the forms will be increasing. When a person will be enjoying the taste, as he continues to taste the things, the desire for tasting the materials will be increased. Because when we will be enjoying the sensory objects, our mind becomes calm. And the happiness that has been experienced is of our Atman. But we think that it is of sensory objects. Whenever we will be in a position to experience the sense object, when we are in a position to see the forms, we are experiencing the taste. Like that, we think that the bliss that has been experienced is of the sensory objects. But it is not like that. It is of our Atman. And when we enjoy the sensory objects, the net result is the sense enjoyment ends in tiresomeness and weariness. If we will have this idea, then we will not be in a position to have the maximum desires or the desire to enjoy happiness from the sensory objects at all. The person will be usually happy by whatever he has got according to his prarabdha karma. I have been satisfied by what I have got according to my prarabdha karma. So if one will be satisfied with what he has got, he will be happy. And if he tries to desire more and more, the desires will be increased and the unhappiness will be increased, and at the last he will be very unhappy. And usually the people, they fear of death. If I die, I will lose everything. If I am living, I can use my body and I can enjoy the sensory objects. Like that he thinks. But if the body will be died, so the body dies, and how I can experience, enjoy happiness from the sense objects like that. But that which has been born is going to die definitely. Even if you worry, what will happen if I die like that? Doesn't matter. Irrespective of the worry that you are concerned, but the body is definitely going to die. The gross body dies, but I don't die. The body dies, but the Atman doesn't die. And I am the Atman. I am the self. I am the consciousness. I am the bliss. If one will have this idea, he will not be in a position to fear for death. Then again, we can construct the spiritual ashrams. There we can make the arrangement of Atmajnanis or the sadhakas, and they will be in a position to explain about what is morality, what is dispassion, and what is self-knowledge, like that. We can publish the spiritual books. In these spiritual ashrams, we have to teach what is morality, why we have to observe the moral rules, Morality means or to enjoy the sense objects by distributing them. Whatever the objects that have been there, we can just distribute and enjoy. When we enjoy the sensory objects by distribution, there will be no quarrel. And if there will be no quarrel, so there will be no the calmness of the mind will not all be disturbed. The mind becomes calm. And when the mind becomes calm, one can experience happiness. That is why there is the necessity to explain about morality. And then there again we can explain about dispassion. Though we'll be in a position to distribute the sensory objects and enjoy the sensory objects, but there will be craziness in our mind. Hey, that object gives bliss. This object gives bliss like that. But if we inquire what exactly is the bliss and where exactly it is not in the sensory objects. When we will be in a position to enjoy the happiness by sensory objects, when we continue to enjoy that, so they will become tiresome and they end in weariness. So lastly, there will be tiresomeness and weariness because there is no happiness in the sensory objects. So in this way, we can teach the people the dispassion. Even we can have dispassion, but there will be not an eternal peace or the permanent happiness. The permanent happiness can be enjoyed if we will be in a position to transcend our body consciousness. When we think that we are the body, there will be hunger, there will be thirst, there will be unhappiness due to cold, due to sunlight, due to sultriness, there will be insult, disease, old age, desires, and fear. Where there is a body, there is unhappiness. So if we have to experience happiness, we have to transcend the body consciousness. And you can transcend the body consciousness when we will be in a position to know whether exactly we are the body or not. And if we try to know what is our real nature, we are not the body, but we are knower of the body. The consciousness that knows we are, and that is the self, and that is the Atman. And when we remain as the Atman, we can experience permanent bliss. And this has been called as the Atma Dhyana. So, by attaining Atma Dhyana, there will be permanent happiness. And we can explain to the people this message by which if they listen that and if they understand that, they will be in a position to experience the permanent happiness. So again, we can provide the food to the poor, to the blind, to the handicapped, and even to the patients, the old people, the orphans, and those sadhakas which have been engaged in continuous meditation of Atman, we can provide the food to them. Then the people will be in a position to become unhappy. So for these people, we can establish the boarding houses. Sometimes, in the world there will be flood, there will be famine, there will be earthquake, there will be volcanoes, there will be the storm. And nowadays, the patients have been suffering with severe viral diseases like COVID-19, like that. And they also can be helped by these. So if by performing this type of worship of living beings as the gods and goddesses, so there will be established permanent happiness in the world. So there will be no quarrels, there will be no wars, and there will be no world wars. And if we do the worship in this way, the living beings as the gods and goddesses, there will be established permanent happiness in the world. And by this I end my talk.